All right. Hi, Next Nation. Thanks for having me. And let's begin with a little story, shall we? Okay. So it all started about 4 years ago. I was working with agencies and making a ton of websites for clients, and my stack of choice was simple. It was Nuxt websites hosted on Netlify, paired with whatever CMS the client was fine with. And that worked great for me. It worked great. However, as I was making more websites, I found myself repeating the same snippets of code again and again, and that really felt wrong. So that's when I started exploring making my own packages. And I did make some. I make some utils for Next, some utils for Netlify, and all of a sudden, I was able to cherry pick packages on a need basis, and I could stop copy pasting the same snippets of code from project to project. And do you know who faced a similar story around the same period? Hmm? Well, turns out the next team itself faced the same story around a similar period. Like all of a sudden started making packages that weren't Next. At first as part of the Next contributor organization, and then under the refined NJS organization, which maybe you already know. But basically, both the Next team and I were minding our own businesses, and at one point we started to make packages. And guess what? You can make packages too at your job or for personal projects. So let's see what's a package ecosystem and why would you want to have your own. Let's also see like how do packages work with NPM more specifically. And finally, we'll go through some maintenance tips on like what does that looks like to be a package maintainer. So let's get started, shall we? Okay, but before that, I'm Lucie Haberer. I'm from France, as you probably guessed from my accent. I started my developer journey working with MediaWiki, the software Wikipedia runs on. I've worked at a bank as an engineer. No need to share more about that for now, but we'll get back to it. Nowadays, I'm working at Prismic as a developer experience engineer. By the way, at Prismic, we're building a headless CMS and page builder, and I'm having fun there managing the company's open source ecosystem. So start to see the link with this talk, perhaps. And finally, I'm a Next contributor and team member. I've been working with Next for more than 6 years now, and it's been a nice journey. But anyway, enough me chatting, let's get to the talk. And one thing I want to try with this talk is to make it a bit interactive, just a bit, don't worry. So I built this thing that works like Kahoot, except there's no funny music and you don't get more points from being fast. But basically, it allows me to prompt you about something. And the first thing I want to prompt you about is, have you ever published a package, an NPM package or any other kind of non-NPM, non-JS package? So please, like, grab your phone or just follow one of those links, and well, like, we'll see the votes about that. So you can also like follow the links or just type them in the browser and it will get running. So I see votes are coming, so that's cool. I will move forward for now to accommodate the stream delay, and we'll have more in a few. But thanks for keep voting, like if we carry on. So actually, the first thing I want to talk to you about today is not even packages themselves, but package ecosystems. The reason for that is that when talking about packages, in fact, we're more often talking about ecosystem of packages. And I think ecosystems are a better way to think about making packages as an organization, a company, or even individual. So, well, to start with then, what's a package ecosystem? If I were to give a straight definition, it would be something along those lines. In our case, a package ecosystem is all the packages under the responsibility of an entity, whether it's individual, a company, etc. To put this in perspective, for example, at Prismic, we're building a CMS, and for our client to use this CMS, we provide them with SDKs. So we have SDKs for Node, for Vue, for Nuxt, for React, for Next, and so on. And that's already quite a lot of packages that are all under the umbrella of Prismic. So as per our definition, that's Prismic's package ecosystem. But then what about me, Lucie? As we've seen, I'm making some packages for myself, also make Next CLI for Next, Acti, a file generator, and a few others. And again, like that's Lucie's package ecosystem. And we can keep going like that for years and years, but again, I think you got the hang of it. That's my definition of a package ecosystem, but let's just add some more to that. First thing, an important one, is that ecosystems can be private. Remember, I worked at a bank, and there we had multiple packages internally that we are using to build our applications. They're not available on NPM, but, well, we had those packages, and it was a private package ecosystem. Secondly, that there can be ecosystem with just one package. Otherwise, how could you get started? And indeed, that's where I think considering packages as an ecosystem really helps, because you're not making an exception by abstracting some of your code into a dedicated package. Instead, you're growing an ecosystem that will then support you better in your journey. So to recap briefly about package ecosystem, so far we have learned that an ecosystem defines packages under the responsibility of an entity, whether it's an individual or an organization. Such ecosystems can be private or public, and there can be as many or as few packages living in an ecosystem because an ecosystem grows and shrinks. So, okay, that's interesting, Lucie. You came up with a weird way to speak about multiple packages. But why would I want to grow my own ecosystem or even make packages? Well, I'm glad you asked. While not everyone's into creating brand new technologies like Vue or React, for us, mere mortals, there are still reasons to do so. And maybe the most obvious reason to do so is for the sake of abstracting things. For example, and because it's quite straightforward with my case at Prismic, we have an API, and our users use this API and we want them to use it easily. So let's make a package that contains all the code for querying our API easily and share it. We can apply that reasoning to other types of companies. Remember, I worked at a bank, and there we had an internal authentication service. And for the sake of using it consistently, we created a private auth package that enabled us to use it seamlessly on various projects. Another example, getting back to Prismic, my job here is to maintain its SDKs. To build those SDKs, we use Vite. So I created a Vite plugin that handles the whole configuration needed to build them, and I published it to NPM, and all of a sudden I was sure all my SDKs were getting built the same way. Neat, huh? Indeed, abstracting configuration through packages is actually not that absurd to do. Actually, some are even leaning towards embracing this pattern like we're doing at Nuxt with the extends key that we've been talking about earlier on during the panel. So, well, long story short, packages are quite handy to abstract the code you use often, whether it's small libraries, helpers, or even configuration. However, I see over there, and I want to put this clear disclaimer before we continue, don't abstract prematurely. Abstraction never comes for free, and as we'll see later, neither does creating packages. This pattern of creating packages is not something you should do every time you have to write something twice. It's fine for your code to be a little wet. So that's abstracting thing. It's maybe the reason we can all relate to for creating packages and growing our ecosystems. There are other reasons to do so, like creating a fork of another package, brand new technologies, and so on. But those are more subtle and less relatable to everyone. And overall, at the end of the day, the reason we're building packages is to make our developer experience nicer and our software stronger. Every day, we use Vue, React, because they make building maintainable interfaces a breeze. But we don't need any of those for our UIs to be reactive. However, this certainly makes the journey to get there much nicer. And while Vue and React are big packages, small ones also make a difference. They are easier to start with than others. They can be made more easily at any company. They have a smaller surface and scope than big code base does. And because they are small, that's a great opportunity for us to battle test them. This way, when we use them on our bigger application, we're sure we're building them on top of solid and trusty foundations. So to conclude this segment on package ecosystem and why you do start to grow your own, I'd like to add that it's fine if you don't want or need to create packages yet. However, like many things, it's nice to know about this pattern as it enables you to use it when it becomes relevant to you. In the meantime, whether or not you already see opportunities with them, knowing more about packages and their internals will at least help you when troubleshooting package-related issues. So let's now focus on packages and other work. But before that, let's get back to our poll from the beginning and check out the results. So great, like turns out we have a few people that created packages yet, and a majority of us didn't. So that's interesting. So we're actually going to give you some tips to see what we can do. And for people that already did, like there will also be some things for you. So all right, I believe what we've seen so far works for any technology, whether it's PHP packages, modules, REST, Ruby gems, and so on and so on. But if there's one tech we can all relate to today, it's NPM packages. And that's already quite a broad topic in itself, so let's dive into NPM packages work and their intricacies. However, before we embark on this journey, I need to voice some quick disclaimer. First of all, this section won't be about which bundler to use or which linter you should work with. I have a lot of opinions and bad takes on those, so feel free to come chat with me about that on Twitter, Mastodon, or in the live stream chat after that. Also, I can already see some of you be rolling your eyes over there, like, is she really about to talk on how to write a package, Jason? Yes, I am, and no worries. I'm sure there will be some things for you to pick up, or at least there will be some jokes. So enough for disclaimers. First thing I actually want to talk to you about today is NPM itself, because let's just quickly start with the basics. So NPM is basically two things. The first thing is the NPM CLI. It is used to interact with our packages, and I guess we're all familiar with at least NPM install. The fun thing about this CLI is that you can replace it with others like yarn, PNPM, and so on. But TLDR, they all claim to do something better than NPM, and that's pretty much true. The second thing is that NPM is also an online database. By online database, we mean a registry where packages can be published to, but as importantly, where we can download packages from. The default registry is npmjs.com, but that's the default one. Indeed, like with the npm CLI, it can be replaced with others, like GitHub has one, for example, and you can even spin your own if you're brave enough. Something powerful about registries is that you can configure npm to use multiple registries to resolve your dependencies. And that's a pattern I'm sure some of you are already using at your companies, or at least we were when I worked at a bank, for my case. So, well, that's what npm is about. You don't like its CLI, you can change it. You don't want to use the public registry, you can use another. Oh, well, before we move on, like npm Incorporated, so the company behind npm belongs to GitHub, which itself belongs to Microsoft, like pretty much everything else at this point. But okay, joke aside, like now that we're relying on npm, we can talk about the mighty package.json file. And well, this is quite naturally our package definition. When we make websites, Nuxt websites, for example, like we use package.json to declare dependencies and scripts to work with our projects. However, when we make a package that's meant to be published and installed later on by users, there are a lot more considerations that come into play when writing a package.json. So let's discuss them. First of all, there are only two fields that need to be declared within our package.json for it to be valid. The first one is the name field. It's the name of our package. There are a few there's a few restrictions of how you have to spell it, but basically anything kebab case will work great. And one thing that not everyone knows about package names is that they can be scoped like this. So a scope basically represents a user or an organization, and they are quite handy because you can only publish packages to scopes you have access to. And because of that, you can also pick pretty much any name you like because there's no collision. Like you're the only one that can publish to this scope. And also, scopes gives you a hint at a glance as to who is behind the package. And here, for example, it's our Prismic organization on npm, so you know that any package coming with that scope belongs to Prismic and is certainly authored by a Prismic employee. So the second part that is mandatory in a package.json is the version field. So that's a version of our package. And I have a little poll for you. So again, like please grab your phone. And what I want to ask you is, can you use 2.3 as a version number on your package? So there's certainly like a Next 2.3 version, so maybe we can. And well, so please grab your phone, scan one of those QR code, like or follow one of those links, lucie.red/true or lucie.red/false, and we'll get back to this slide in a few. But for now, I will like give you a little spoil. Basically, if you try to use 2.3 as a version number, like npm will throw. This is not correct, and the reason for that is that npm enforces you to use a valid semver number for its version number. So what is semver? Like semver stands for semantic versioning. I won't dive into it that much today because it would get us a bit off track, but basically semantic versioning is a versioning convention that npm packages use, and it reflects the kind of versions the kind of changes that happen between two versions. And if you want to learn more about it, it's really interesting. Head over to semver.org. But well, for now, let's just get back to our polls. And well, looks like majority of you again like knew about like that 2.3 is not a valid version number. So congrats about that. And no shame about the people that answered yes, because like less than a year ago, I would have answered yes too, because I thought it was not strictly enforced by NPM, but turns out it is. So great. And thank you everyone again for answering the poll. We'll have a few last ones. So well, stay tuned. All right. So name and versions. Those were the classics but mandatory fields. Let's now see more package-oriented fields. If a package is about delivering code, then we have to talk about entry points. And entry points define what is accessible on our package from a code perspective. And the most basic entry points we can have is the main field like this. This is what you'll get from your package when you require it in your code. But you might have heard about the two flavors of JavaScript, CommonJS and ECMAScript module. Well, the community came up with a field just for ECMAScript module, and it's called module. And from it, you can declare your ECMAScript module ESM entry point like this. So, well, we have main and module, like things work great from so far. But a few years ago, the folks at Node.js decided that among other things, it would be great to have an official way to support both CGS and ESM. So they introduced the exports field. The export key is a map where you can declare multiple entry points. But more importantly, you can specify CGS and ESM entry points for your package there like this. So we have main, module, exports. Which one are we supposed to use now? Well, The answer to that question is a bit complex, but basically you have two choices. Either you want to be future-facing and only future-facing, then you can just use the exports field. That's what I would recommend today because like Node 16 like is sunsetting, and like with it, like a common JS is also going to the grave, which is really great. But for some of us, like there will still be a need to support like older setups. So if we need to be compatible, or if we want to be compatible, we have to use our free. Whew. So, well, that was for main module and exports. Those are the entry points that exposes code from our package, but we might have other kind of assets to expose. And famously, you might want to expose TypeScript types, for example. To do so, the types field is here to help, so we can add it to the exports or to the root of our package definition, and this will provide our TypeScript types to the package that when we publish it. Also, your package might be shipping it with a CLI. In that case, you're looking at the bin field like this, and that's what Nuxt is using, for example, to provide you with Nuxt CLI. Finally, if you want to ship any kind of other assets, for example, like CSS files, like images and so on, the files array is here to help. Any files or folders listed here will get bundled in the published artifact and shipped to NPM. Okay, so that was pretty much section entry point. Like entry points are the most tricky thing to configure on your package JSON. And for a full example, here's how we ship our package without Prismic. So we can see it's quite similar to what we had so far. And one interesting thing to note here is that we're shipping our source folder to NPM. And that's not something you want to do every time, but in our case, it's helpful because this allows us to do some debugging sometimes in production. So we keep it like this. And that's something you can consider too. But well, like entry points are only like one part of the story. Second part of the story for making packages are dependencies. In that case, like with dependencies, you're quite familiar with them already. You know dependencies and dev dependency fields. Those fields behave rather similarly when working on a website. However, the difference is radical in the context of making a packages that you want to publish, because only dependencies instead of dependencies will get installed when installing the package. Everything in dev dependencies will be ignored. And this is really important because, for example, at Prismic, we're building our packages with Vite, and like we don't need users to build our package. It's already built on some NPM. So we definitely want to list Vite as a dev dependency. This way, users don't have to install Vite just to use our package. Another kind of dependencies that is quite often used are peer dependencies. They're a bit like dependencies, except NPM won't install them. Instead, NPM will expect users to have it installed. And that's something that's quite handy from time to time. For example, like Vue router declares Vue as a peer dependency because like it doesn't want to provide you with Vue. It just wants to make sure that you're running Vue router with Vue because it's meant to work with it. So, well, that was pretty much all that is important to consider when making a package for that you want to publish. You have what you need to get started, and really you have more than what you need to get started. But I had to omit stuff, obviously. I haven't talked about the engine field. I haven't talked about the type without an S field, and many others that I could still talk about for hours. They are more specific, and you don't need them every time. So please refer to the documentation to dig more into it if you're interested. But really, like, you don't have to check them out right away. So, all right, that concludes this big section on how to make NPM packages and why. And well, like we've seen a lot of things already. We've seen about like package ecosystem, what you would like to have your own, and now you can get started with NPM packages. But trust me, creating and publishing packages is the easy part. The hardest part of offering packages is maintaining them. And I have about 5 minutes left to talk to you about that. But first, one last quick poll, and I'd like to ask you, have you ever opened an issue or feature request on an open source project? I'm quite happy to be after Julian, like who did like really great at his talk, because like this chimes really nicely with his talk right after. So again, like one last time, please pick your phone and submit your answer by scanning one of those QR code or following one of those links, and we'll get back to it in a few. So maintenance. First of all, if you start making packages and like open source packages as an offer, just know that people will expect a lot from you. But please bear in mind that it's fine if if your package doesn't support TypeScript from the get-go. It's fine if you don't have both CGS and ESM. It's fine if you don't write TS docs. It's fine if and so on and so on. Just know that people might eventually complain about it, and don't be surprised. But because you're not an open source package offer, you now have this mighty power of replying to them, PR welcome. Because if the package already works great for you and others, like that's already awesome. And talking about welcome PR, let's get back to our poll. And Well, like this time we have a great balance of people that already like contributed to open source and people who never. And well, like thanks for contributing, everyone who did. Thanks for contributing to my poll, at least for everyone who haven't yet. But well, like no pressure, of course. Like if you're interested in WebSite, there will be a day that comes when you figure out like an issue that you want to document or feature request that you want to fix, you want to contribute to open source. So well, one day will come. Like no shame about that at all. So let's now talk a bit about regular maintenance of packages. In regular maintenance, I include two things: fixing bugs if any got reported, and maintaining dependencies, that is to say, updating them. Whether your package is open source or not, it's nice to do that regularly, as it will ensure your package keeps working over time and is easier to update when need be. To give you an idea, we do that about once a week at Prismic if there are issues, otherwise once a month. This way we can stay focused. And to let our users know we might not get back to them until the following week, we added a quick bot reply to every new issue telling them about it. And you're welcome stealing that from us too if you think that will work great for you. So that's for maintenance, but what about evolving? That is to say, adding new features or changing existing ones. Well, there's no rule of thumb for that, sadly. Small features can often be added as is, and for bigger and breaking ones, it's nice to write a plan for them. What works really great for us at Prismic in that regard are RFCs. RFCs are documents describing in great lengths the changes you'd like to make, the consideration, and various like motivation you might have. They don't have a fixed structure, but you can, for example, see the one I wrote for Nuxt thrilling components some time ago publicly on GitHub. Finally, a package can die. Maybe its functionalities are not native or not needed anymore. Maybe it has been replaced with something better, or maybe no one wants to maintain it anymore. In any case, it's fine. Just be a great citizen if that happens to your package and use the npm deprecate command to deprecate it on npm or whatever is the process to deprecate a package on other technologies. All right, so that was my talk, maintaining companies' open source ecosystems. We discussed package ecosystem for organizations and individuals. We did dive into the intricacies of NPM packages and went through some maintenance tips. I really hope you managed to pick up a few things, and maybe you got inspired to embark on that journey on your own or with your company. You can find all the info about these talks, slides, extra links at lucie.red/NuxtNation. Finally, you can also follow me and my nonsense on Twitter or Mastodon at those links. And well, thanks everyone for staying up late and listening to my talk.
This was wonderful. Thank you. We do have a few questions for you.
Okay, I'm here. Sorry, I had the tab muted.
Ooh, yes, I totally get that. We do have a few questions for you. And
Sure.
before that, I was just saying thank you because it was a great talk follow-up to Julian's. Like that was perfect.
Yeah, great.
All right. Do you have any additional tips you'd like to share that you didn't have time to during your talk?
Yes, like there's one thing that I really like doing is like don't be afraid to when you're using a dependency, like for example, like when you're picking up a new dependency on npm, like don't be afraid to go to the GitHub and see how it's made. You can learn a lot about the
Mm,
tools like that are used by maintainer like this way, and like package author. Like I learned about like a lot of things about the .github folder this way, or also like picked up some nice extensions like VS Code version length is really nice to update dependencies like in a clear way. Like yeah, like don't be afraid, like dive into the source code. Like maybe you won't understand anything, but you'll see like, oh, they're using this tool, like what is this I don't know, like npm-rc file, what is it doing? And then you'll learn things this way. So don't be afraid to look at the source code.
nice. Thank you. All right. How do you handle problem contributors? Ooh.
Oh, well, okay. So in all fairness, I don't have a lot of experience with problematic contributors. I guess like people like Daniel or Puya might know a bit more about that. I guess like the golden rule is like don't feed the troll, things like that. If people are annoyed, like well, you don't as an open source contributor, it's a bit different in my case at Prismic because we have live client, but like for someone like that is just like creating an open source package, you don't owe anything to people using your code. Like you're actually like you're already giving them your code. So if they're not happy about it, they can create a fork, they can submit a pull request to fix what they want to fix. And if they don't want to do anything, well, they can just sit and wait and really like I'd say like just ignore them if they are like annoying about it. Like GitHub provides tools for moderation for that if people are really getting annoying about that. But yeah, like bear in mind that if you're an open source author, like you don't owe anything to anyone. So yeah, keep that in the back of your mind.
Thank you. And I loved your part about like you don't have to start with like your
Yes.
TypeScript or things like that. It does, as somebody that has started things before, I always think that I need to have it perfect to start, and
Yeah,
you don't.
definitely. Like my first packages were just like JavaScript files with no bundling, with no TypeScript whatsoever. It was just like JavaScript like helpers function that you are like pushing to npm and like importing them somewhere else. So you can start with that. Like that's, if it works for you, that's already great.
That's awesome. All right, last question. Can you share an example of a time you experienced an aha moment in open source?
Okay. I guess it was like along like some of those tools. Like when I started working at Prismic and like started like picking up like the open source ecosystem of Prismic, and like we're looking like to strengthen our test strategy. And so back then, like the golden like test runner was Jest. And so like, well, like let's use Jest. But like we figured out like, well, we were using a couple of packages from someone called Synthosius. Well, I have trouble pronouncing their name. Like someone like making a lot of packages like that. Maybe some of you know, like they make like a Meow, they make like a lot of small utility packages. They make Chalk, for example. Well, anyway, and I noticed like they were using like Ava on their packages to actually like run their tests, which is like some kind of minimal test runner that doesn't require the whole like setup and boilerplate that Jest required. And so, well, like instead of using Jest to run our test, like we went with Ava, which was much simpler for our use case and worked really great for us up until like Vitest would come, and then we had to switch to Vitest because it was so much cooler.
But that does answer the question. So thank you, and once again, thank you for joining us, Lucie. It's always
Yeah, you're
amazing to have
welcome.
you.
Thank you for the great
And
listening.
thank you. See you again next time.
See you. Bye.